It is never a good idea to have your pal Sully be the person making contract decisions for your team. That being said, I think the Phillies have a no-brainer for a contract extension.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it now. And on the Instagrams, I'm on Instagram at Sully Baseball Podcast. I'm on Blue Sky every once in a while. I'm not really getting into it, but if you happen to go there, I'm at Sully Baseball. The best way to get a hold of me is right here on YouTube. Follow us here, and yeah, this is where to get a hold of us. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel. That's right. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to fanduel.com to get started. See some people already in the live stream, including our buddy Jeff Cohen, who's an everyday Sully. Yeah, and if you're listening to us every day, make sure to post that hashtag everyday Sully. It helps us keep track of who the heck is floating out there. Well, Jeff Cohen's not going to be happy to hear this because I am not going to be talking about the Mets right now. I'm going to be talking a little bit about another National League East team, but one that I think should make a move. Now, now we all know the Philadelphia Phillies going into this year are going to be a very good team. They were a very good team last year, and I do believe if they were able to, well, if they didn't pull their ace in Game 1 a little prematurely, and if a hit here or a hit there landed in games 3 or 4, I think if the Phillies faced Los Angeles, they would have given the Dodgers the biggest fits. They had a good lineup. I thought the Phillies had the best starting rotation. They just happened to hit a Mets team in that Game 1 come from behind victory that sort of put the Phillies on their heels. But they are still going to be a good team this year. They have, they brought in a couple of good players. I mean, they did make a big splash. I actually thought they were going to be the team that was going to sign Alex Bregman. Not necessarily they had a spot for him. I just thought they were going to make a big splash. But they brought in Jordan Romano and Jesus Luzardo. But the main thing the Phillies have going for them is they already have a very good foundation. They have a legit MVP in Bryce Harper. If I were to say, do you think Bryce Harper is going to win the NL MVP? You'd probably say no because his name is not Shohei Ohtani. But you probably, if I said I think he's going to be a top 3 MVP, there you go. By the way, Jeff Cohen said Mets had momentum in the Phillies series. Momentum is something you talk about in retrospect. I've seen plenty of teams on an absolute rampage that fall flat on their face in a postseason series. And I've seen plenty of teams that limp and waddle their way into the postseason and suddenly catch fire. I don't want to bring up the 2006 Cardinals around you, Jeff Cohen. That team absolutely staggered like a drunk into the postseason and wound up winning the World Series. I can't imagine a hotter team going into the postseason than the 1987 Detroit Tigers, who stampeded past an infinitely more talented Toronto Blue Jays team and then got smacked in the face by the Minnesota Twins. These are things that are always descriptive. The narrative about the Mets, oh, they had momentum last year. The narrative about that Tigers team was, they ran out of gas because the pennant race was so exhausting. It's always in retrospect. If a bounce here, a bounce there in Game 1 happened, the Mets would have been down 2-0 going back to, I almost said Shea. Don't mean to shoot you down there, Jeff Cohen. But they have Aaron Nola. They have Zach Wheeler. They have JT Realmuto. They have a bunch of people who I really, really think are terrific on their team. I also think they have the front office that, as I've made this point before, is an absolute we have to win right now at all times. They do not care about prospects. Any team that David Dombrowski has run, his job is to win a pennant now. And when he was running the Expos, they didn't wind up winning the pennant, but he wound up putting together a very good team. When he ran the Marlins, we got to win right now. We got to win right now. When he worked with the Tigers, he put together a pennant winner. They won right now. When he took over the Red Sox, he said, "I don't care about your prospects. I'm here to win right now." And there was some shenanigans going on off the field. Takes over the Phillies, boom, back in the World Series faster than you can say Tug McGraw. Because he says, "Our job is to win right now. I'm not care about your prospects." So he's probably looking at a team that is pretty solid. He did a little maintenance in the offseason, and if there's a major problem, he will trade. They will fix it. And there are players out there whose contracts are running out, and from other teams that the Phillies will swoop in and say, "We don't care if it's a rental. We're trying to win right now." But he also has free agents that are coming out at the end of the year. Suarez is going to be a free agent. JT Realmuto is going to be a free agent. Kyle Schwarber is going to be a free agent. And according to Matt Gelb of The Athletic and an article at MLB Trade Rumors, it looks like Kyle Schwarber is like saying, "Hey, you're going to extend this contract? I can stick around." If there's ever a player who I would right now, before I get to the FanDuel ad read I have to do pretty soon, even before then, they should offer him a 2, 3, 4-year contract extension, Kyle Schwarber. And yes, I know I am a big softy, and I would always, if I were the general manager of your team, you'd be absolutely screwed because I'd be making so many decisions based on emotions. Like, it'd be team for life. Kyle Schwarber right now is a no-brainer. And do you want mark this? Jeff Cohen, mark the time. It is the 16th day of February 2025. I'm saying it at 1:12 p.m. Pacific Coast time. And if I'm wrong, and I'm still doing this podcast 3 years from now, we'll go back to this moment, and I'll even show this clip. I will say there in 3 years, Kyle Schwarber will still be this productive offensive player, and is a no-brainer to give him let's say a 3-year contract extension. When you're beyond the age of 30, asking for more than 3 years is probably a bit greedy. If they want to throw in a fourth, I think he's still going to be productive 4 years from now. I bet he was an early round draft pick by the Chicago Cubs, exploded on the scene when they went to the NLCS in 2015. Basically missed the 2016 season, only played 2 games, but was activated for the World Series roster and was on that game-winning rally in Game 7, and proceeded to be a home run hitter with the Cubbies. In his brief time in Boston, half a season with Boston, not even that, became a fan favorite. Landed in Philadelphia, and he fits Philadelphia like a cheesesteak. He fits Philadelphia like Rocky Balboa, like Tina Fey, like Hall and Oates. It's always sunny with Kyle Schwarber. And the thing is I think his skill set of being able to mash the ball and being able to walk, those aren't going to go down in 2 or 3 years. He's still going to be able to do that. He's 32. He's still going to hit the snot out of the ball. He's still going to get on base. He's still going to be this really, really weird leadoff hitter. And that he has no speed. He did steal 10 bases in 2022, which is it was amazing. He's going to strike out a lot. If you fixate on his batting average, you're going to pull the hair out of your head. But if you see how many times he gets on base a lot. And you also know the fact that when he gets to hold one, he's going to hit the snot out of the ball. He's Dave Kingman. If Dave Kingman had a good eye, yeah, he's going to whiff. He's going to whiff an unbelievable amount of times. But he's not going to run into a lot of double plays. He's going to walk. He's going to hit home runs. He's going to score a ton of runs. He's going to drive in a ton of runs. And the fans are going to love him because he has that sort of Greg Luzinski, not exactly slim slugger quality to him. And he is going to be that way in a couple of years. He will still be doing this in a couple of years. I have zero doubt about it. And I think they should do this. I think they should. I would say, hey, will you take a 3-year extension right now? And if he says yes, then first of all, you have him for a few more years. But the other thing that does is it sends a message to the team that, hey, this is the window of opportunity is not closing right now. And it also sends a message to, I mean, it's a very, Suarez and Riamoto of saying, hey, we're open for business. This is not a rebuild. It sends a message to the fans to say, hey, we're going to try to win this year, next year, and a bunch of years moving forward. And it sends a message to Kyle Schwarber to say, just do what you're doing. Just do what you're doing, because like those other Philadelphians, Hall and Oates, you're making my dreams come true. And if the Phillies want to win a pennant, and let's face it, they are one of the teams that are a pretty good bet to win the National League pennant this year. I'm not just giving it to the Dodgers, nor should you. The Phillies have an excellent chance to win the National League pennant. And if they do, and I know that Kyle Schwarber is going to be a huge part of that. So let's not have him walk away if you're the Phillies. Consider it insurance. And speaking of insurance, let's hear from our friends over at SelectQuote. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. And the same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. And if you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million, no medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockdown. Go to selectquote.com/lockdown to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockdown. SelectQuote. They shop and you save. I mentioned that I don't automatically give Los Angeles the pennant. I don't automatically give the Yankees anything. Right now, I think the Yankees are probably the favorite to win the American League East, but they are, they, as I've mentioned several times before, they've removed a gigantic Jenga piece, which is Juan Soto, who, lest we forget, put Juan Soto in that lineup. They were an elite lineup. You took Juan Soto out of that lineup, they were barely 500 a few years ago. Even having a solid Judge year, and even having a solid Cy Young year from Garrett Cole. There are injury issues that are going around with this Yankee team. And that, look, I still think they're going to be a winning team. They're going to be a contender. I'm not saying they're a bad team, but I'm saying there is no clear-cut favorite in the American League East. There isn't. The Yankees are probably the favorite, but there are giant question marks on that team. And the giant question marks come around with injuries. If this team has the injuries that they had just a couple of years ago, it would not stun me if this team falls to 84, 85 wins, which puts them right into the scrum. And one of the first red flags, I'm sorry, is Giancarlo Stanton having an elbow soreness issue. And look, it's apparently it's not a huge thing, but he's 35 years old. And he is frequently, even when he was playing for Miami, he was always at injury risk. I remember, and I say this as a native New Englander, and especially when I was doing the old Sully Baseball podcast, I was fixated on the Red Sox. There was the rumors that Stanton, after he signed the big honking contract after the 2014 season, everyone knew he was going to be traded. And that long-term contract made him more attractive to be traded. And after 2017, when it became clear the Red Sox needed another big bat in their lineup, the Red Sox were a good team. They won back-to-back division titles, but they had a big poppy size hole in their lineup. They hadn't filled in the power after David Ortiz retired and Hanley Ramirez wasn't getting it done. And after the 2017 season, uh, Giancarlo Stanton, remember, he had 59 home runs and won the National League MVP that year with Miami. There were all these rumors: was he going to be traded to LA? Was he going to be traded to New York? Was he traded to the Red Sox? I did a whole podcast of, for the love of everything holy, Red Sox, do not trade for him. Don't do it. And I turned out to be right. It would have been a disaster. They wound up acquiring JD Martinez, who was a perfect fit on the team, and they wound up winning that World Series where there was stuff and cheating going on. We all know that. I have to always mention that. But this is year 8 of Stanton being on the Yankees. He will have spent as many years in New York as he did in Miami. His first year in New York, he played 158 games, was thumbing his nose at everybody. 2019, barely played. 2020, the COVID year, played 20 games. 2021, he missed a bunch of games. But nearly, I mean, he has come up big in the big game. He was this close to having a 3 home run game in the wild card game loss to Boston. But he missed a lot of time in 2022. He missed 50 games in 2022. He missed 60 games in 2023. He missed nearly 50 games last year. And last year, he was relatively healthy. He's now 35. The last time he played 140 games was his first year in New York. And if you do not have a big hitter behind Judge, why in the name of everything holy would you throw a strike to Judge? Yes, I know Bellinger is back, and Bellinger can be very good. Obviously, he had an MVP year one year. He was horrible a couple of years ago. He's probably going to be fine. Paul Goldschmidt was an MVP a couple of years ago. He's going to be a big improvement over the revolving door they had at first base. But again, he's not a spring chicken, and he's going to be fine. But if you don't have an MVP candidate batting behind him, or someone who's a real genuine threat batting behind, protecting Judge, why would you throw him a strike? I would rather face Paul Goldschmidt all day long than throw a strike to Aaron Judge. And that's not a knock on Paul Goldschmidt. Paul Goldschmidt in his prime was a great player. Maybe Paul Goldschmidt will make me eat my words. All right? That's a distinct possibility. But the fact of the matter is, the big red flag for the Yankees to not repeat as division champion, as American League pennant winner and everything, is their health. That's always been the big issue. And we've seen the team not be able to deal with health issues, which is the main reason why I don't think they should trade Marcus Stroman. Not that I think Marcus Stroman is the second coming of Walter Johnson, but he's going to throw 30-something starts. Not great, but at least you'll know what you've got with him. As for Stanton, I don't dislike Giancarlo Stanton. I don't. There's nothing against him, but it's a fact that the guy can't stay on the field for a full season. And if you've removed the Soto factor from this lineup, I'm sorry. This Yankee team, it's not bad. I'm not saying they're a bad team. They could win the division. Absolutely, they could win the division. You're probably picking them to win the division, but they are not an impervious pick. And if signs of injury are looming above this team, then they're not in a position to trade any veterans away. And would that make you nervous if you're a Yankee fan? I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying this as I'm not saying this as a native New Englander. I'm saying this as someone who sees that baseball is more interesting when the Yankees are good. Certainly doing these podcasts are more interesting when the Yankees are good than when they're bad. But the fact of the matter is, the biggest threat to the Yankees repeat as the pennant winner is their health. And the first signs don't look good. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip off or tee off, if they're suddenly playing golf on the course, you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action and you're looking for a bigger payout. You could even combine your live bets with a same game parlay. If I'm watching the Celtics and hoping that they come back and repeat, watch it beat Cleveland this year. I can participate all throughout the game. Whether I'm backing the Celtics for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit fanduel.com to join today. That's fanduel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. And now to click that button. Running my own board. Hey, let's go to see it. Lav S says the Yankees are too top heavy. Um, yeah, I that's possible. Yeah, I mean, you certainly saw in the postseason how top heavy they were and how that came back to bite them. Phil says, I go back to the Sully streak of the daily podcast. Well, thanks for hanging around there, Phil. Yeah, I did the old Sully Baseball Daily. I did every single day from late October 2012 until opening day of 2017. That's what that was about. 4+ years of doing a podcast every single day. Um, eventually just got to be too much, but I'm hearing a lot, and I'm very, very grateful to be part of the Lockdown Podcast Network. Um, uh, let's just talk about a couple of things. I talked about the other day about Mozeliak running the Cardinals and wondering why is he still running the dump. Sonny is good 54 says every day, Sully, this is Mozeliak's last season and Chaim Bloom will be running everything after the season. He is the next president of baseball. Yeah, but here's my question about that's true, and I forgive me for not knowing everything on that topic. But if that's the case, then why have him be in charge at such a critical point of the season, a critical point for the franchise? This is a point where the franchise has to rebuild. They went for it. They thought they were on the verge of winning a pennant. They traded away a lot of players to bring in Arenado and bring in Goldschmidt, and it blew up in their face. Some of the players they traded away turned out to be terrific for other teams, and they never got back to the pennant. And now they got to start shedding because they're not going to win this year. They're not a very good team this year. As recently as 2022, they were in the playoffs. The last couple of years, they've been bad and expensive, and you're starting to see that they've already gotten rid of Goldschmidt. They're going to get rid of Sonny Gray. They're going to get rid of Arenado. They have to rebuild. So why would you be handing the rebuilding process to someone who's 1 foot out the door? If this is going to be Bloom's team, and Bloom is a smart dude, I think he was handcuffed by things with the Red Sox. I know he got a lot of guff of what happened with the Red Sox. I'm not going to put his picture on the back of the wall here, but he was the Red Sox ownership was making him do stupid things, including the Mookie Betts trade, which is the single worst trade of the 21st century. But he's a smart baseball dude who just was doing marching orders. If he's going to be the one to rebuild the team, then have him be the one to rebuild the team. I don't understand why you would say the person who was making all the horrific decisions, give that person the car keys. I don't get it, and I don't get it. And did I mention I do not get it? Stephen Colatrava says we were talking about work stoppages the other day, and I'm going to be talking a bunch about work stoppages this week. Work stoppages in baseball now, not say the 60s or 70s, are stupid. I agree, but outside sports, work stoppages are how working people have rights at work. Yeah, I understand. I get it. I'm a union teacher. I'm a part of the Teachers Association. I'm a union guy. I know that there's there's reasons for work stoppages. You have to have some leverage. I would argue that the work stoppages in baseball in the 70s and 80s and even in the 90s had merit, absolutely have merit. And Stephen pointed out, and I always make there's a distinction. There's a distinction between a lockout and a strike. A strike is when the players don't show up. A lockout is when the owners lock them out. I think the laziest thing you could say is it's just billionaires versus millionaires. No, not what happening. That's one of those takes that make me roll my eyes. My main problem with the stupidity of the potential lockout is it's not even owners versus players. It's owners versus each other. And this is when a strong commissioner would be handy. Think about the three things that are going on right now. Four, really, that if we had a strong commissioner, and we don't, we would have someone providing leadership amongst them for A, figuring out what to do about the whole payroll disparity controversy. The system is set up with safeguards for teams not spending way more than everyone else. It's the luxury tax. The Yankees don't want to go past it. The Yankees, the freaking Yankees, the Scrooge McDuck of baseball teams don't want to go past it, therefore showing there's a certain deterrent there. However, there's a couple of teams who don't care. The Red Sox traded away a homegrown Hall of Famer to avoid it. The Yankees are avoiding, making certain moves to avoid it. But you have the Mets and the Dodgers say, we don't care. I'll pay it. What is it? Here you go. We can afford it. So that's where the fight is. The fight is between the few teams who don't care and the rest of the owners, not the owners versus the players, which is why a lockout is so banana boats. And a commissioner would be the one to say, all right, everyone, let's get in line here. Let's figure out what's happening to avoid a work stoppage, because a work stoppage would be crazy. You have other things like the idea of blackouts and not having every game streamed. Seeing that's where young eyeballs are. Not one game should be blacked out. If you subscribe to MLB, the MLB app, to watch games on your app, you know what? If you want to have it be a higher tier, fine. I'm not a communist. I understand. I would gladly pay a higher tier to be able to watch any game on my device and everything. And as I kept bringing up, when I was helping take care of my father towards the end of his life, where sometimes one of the great joys of the day was to sit down with him and watch the Giant game, I would be more than happy to pay for the tier that the game is always on the same spot and not on Apple TV or Amazon or Hulu or Disney Plus or on freaking MySpace. It's insane. If you ever have to ask, where is the game? I can't find it. Guess what? People have moved on to watch something else. That's suicide. Make it be an extra tier where you get to watch all the local games and they're always on at the same damn place. You could sell whatever ads you want. We all know ads are part of it. For God's sakes, it's the 21st century. We're a quarter of the way through this century. Let's start acting like it. And the other two things are the disaster is what's happening in Tampa Bay and Oakland, which is going to be the topic of another podcast I'm going to do later this week, which is the fact that I don't believe we'll ever see a Major League Baseball game in St. Petersburg again. And I don't believe the A's are going to play in Las Vegas. And I have seen nothing over the last few weeks that indicate that the A's are ever going to play in Las Vegas and that the Rays are ever going to play in St. Petersburg. Now, they may play in Central Florida, but the fact that the commissioner is allowing this situation where the temporary solution is them to play in a minor league ballpark, which is bad enough, but you can sort of roll your eyes for maybe 1, maybe 2 years. It's a disaster, but it's something that 2 years afterwards, it's fine. The Rays are going to be in a minor league park for the foreseeable future. And at this point, I think the A's are too. And a commissioner would never have allowed that to happen. Adam Scott Bristol says, my hope is a substantial upgrade in Yankees defense will offset some of the loss of the Soto offense. Yeah, I mean, the defense is gonna be a lot better. They just have to play smarter baseball, and then that you'll see something going on with the Yankees there. The final question is, the final thing is Scott Horsemeyer, who's an everyday Sully, says, "When are you bringing trivia back?" Yeah, during the regular season, I have a trivia question at the end of the show, and I reveal the answer on the next day. I didn't do it during the off season because a lot of times I record some of these shows out of order, or I do some evergreen ones. I got to give myself a couple of weeks off and everything. So, but we're bringing it back certainly during the regular season. We're gonna have trivia back, and but that's no trivia question anyway, Scott. If you insist, um, the the record for here's the trivia question: the record for home runs by a Dodger is Duke Snider. He has 389 home runs, and that is a combination of his time in Brooklyn and a few years in Los Angeles. Now, if Max Muncy hits 81 more home runs as a Dodger, he will be the all-time Los Angeles Dodger for leader of home runs as a Los Angeles Dodger. And by the way, Mookie Betts, if he hits 140 more home runs, then he will be the all-time Los Angeles Dodger for home runs. So here's the question: who is the all-time home run leader for the Los Angeles Dodgers, who Max Muncy and Mookie Betts and eventually Shohei Ohtani are staring down? That's a trivia question. Put your answer right down here at put it on the YouTube page. That's the easiest place because I'm not on Twitter anymore, or whatever it's called now. Talking about Kyle Schwarber, and while extending him is a no-brainer. And the Yankees, while they should be the favorites, they are not a lock by any stretch of the imagination. This has been Locked On MLB for Sunday, the 16th day of February, 2025. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.